The call came on a Wednesday afternoon, just as Mira Lowell was finishing up a pitch deck for a $22 million merger. Her father's voice rang through her phone, buzzing with excitement he rarely saved for her. "Your sister's getting married, sweetheart." Mira paused, one hand still hovering over the trackpad. "To whom?" "To Gavin Frey," he said, like he'd just announced a royal engagement. "Founder of Foresight Metrics. Brilliant guy, makes all those predictive finance tools. They're having the ceremony at the Alton in Manhattan. Of course, we understand if things are tight for you." There it was again. That word. Tight. His shorthand for Mira's situation. Her situation was that she had turned down a partner track offer at a Wall Street firm and built her own consultancy, Lowell Strategic Partners, headquartered in a sleek, high-rise office in downtown Chicago. Quiet. Specialized. Discreet. Just the way she wanted it. "That's amazing news, Dad," she said evenly, clicking through the due diligence report on her second monitor. Gavin Frey. Foresight Metrics. Mira knew the name well, because she'd just finished signing off on a multi-phase acquisition plan that involved swallowing the company whole. "You coming to the engagement party?" he asked. "Wouldn't miss it," she replied, already knowing the irony would taste sweeter in person. The event was extravagantly overdone. The rooftop of the Alton glowed with expensive light, gold accents, live-string quartet, glasses of champagne that cost more than her first apartment's monthly rent. Everyone was dressed like royalty. Mira, in a simple black sheath dress, blended in just enough to be ignored. Just how she liked it. "Look who finally showed up," her sister Elise called out, sweeping across the marble floor in a gown that glittered more than it flowed. Her smile was rehearsed, her tone sugar-laced with venom. "You look stunning," Mira offered. Elise flicked her hair. "Gavin, this is my older sister, Mira. She does consulting or freelancing or something like that." "Strategic advisory," Mira replied smoothly, extending a hand. Gavin took it, about to dismiss her with a nod, until his grip faltered. "Mira Lowell?" he asked, eyes narrowing. "As in Lowell Strategic Partners?" Her lips curved ever so slightly. "The same." His face paled. Elise, oblivious, kept talking. "Mira's still figuring things out, you know how it is. She's always been more of a thinker than a doer." Gavin gave a laugh that was more a cough. "Right." Mira didn't correct her. She never did. Let them live in the fiction, they built it so carefully, layer by layer. The forgotten older sibling. The one who never lived up to expectations. The one who refused to play the family game. But Gavin knew better. He'd seen her name buried in documents over the last 3 weeks. And he clearly hadn't expected her to be standing in front of him. Elise floated away to mingle with guests, leaving Gavin behind with a glass of champagne trembling in his hand. "I thought the acquisition was anonymous," he said, his voice lowered. "It was," Mira replied. "Until now." "You're buying Foresight?" he asked, stunned. "Why?" "Because your projections are garbage, your churn rate is bleeding, and your development team is on the verge of mutiny. That's blunt. I'm paid to be." He shook his head, like he was trying to catch up. "And Elise? She doesn't know. Yet." The night wore on. Mira watched her sister glow in the spotlight, recounting how Gavin had proposed on a yacht, showing off her massive ring, explaining how she was being brought onto Foresight's board after the wedding. "Gavin says I have a great instinct for strategy," Elise told a group of nodding guests. "Plus, Dad's connections will help scale their reach tenfold." Mira smiled politely and sipped her champagne. The only connections that mattered now ran through her. Near the bar, her father cornered her. "You still doing that freelance thing?" he asked, eyes full of forced sympathy. "You know, I could still talk to Leo at the firm. They'd find a place for you." Mira nearly choked on her drink. The firm was now her client. One of many. Her company had placed more than half their senior team in recent years. "Thanks, Dad," she said, setting down her glass. "But I'm happy where I am." "You had so much potential," he said with a sigh. "You could have been Elise." She nodded thoughtfully. "I could have been." Later that night, Elise approached her near the exit, voice coated in champagne and superiority. "I've been thinking, she said, lowering her voice. After the wedding, maybe I can help you. Get you into something more stable. Gavin could use an assistant to the board, nothing big, of course, but it's a start. Mira met her sister's eyes. That's generous. Elise beamed. Well, someone's got to help you get back on your feet. Mira stepped into the night with a smile tugging at her lips. The skyline twinkled above, oblivious to the slow unraveling of Elise's perfect world. By the time the wedding arrived, so would the announcement. And when Elise stood at the altar, Mira would quietly push send on a press release that would change everything. Back at her condo, Mira opened her laptop and typed out a quick message to her team. Proceed with Phase 3. Acquisition announcement to go live the morning of the wedding. She paused, then added. Confirm Gavin's board resignation draft is finalized. Include Elise's pending removal from the onboarding process. Flag nepotism concerns as rationale. The cursor blinked. This wasn't revenge. It was restoration. A quiet rewrite of every narrative she'd been left out of. The morning of Elise's wedding dawned bright and cloudless, as if the sky itself had RSVP'd to the celebration. The venue, the iconic Whitestone Pavilion just outside Manhattan, had been transformed into a cathedral of luxury. White orchids cascaded from custom glass chandeliers, hand-calligraphed menus sat at each gold-plated place setting, and an entire six-person string ensemble tuned softly near the altar. Mira Lowell arrived precisely on time, wearing an elegant slate gray gown. It was simple, clean-lined, and, like everything about her, effortlessly unassuming. She blended in with the waitstaff until she stepped into the light. Table 27, near the back by the terrace doors. Elise's way of minimizing the embarrassment, no doubt. Mira didn't mind. She wasn't here for the seating chart. As she sat, her phone buzzed with a single-line notification from her assistant. Acquisition papers filed. Press release scheduled, 12 p.m. Mira's lips curled into the ghost of a smile. Perfect timing. At precisely 11:40, Elise emerged in a dress that looked like it had been designed to blind the room. Hand-stitched lace, a cathedral-length veil, and a train that required two bridesmaids to maneuver. Her makeup was flawless, her walk choreographed down to the tilt of her chin. The crowd rose, applauding as she made her entrance. Gavin stood at the altar, trying his best to hide his nerves. Mira watched him closely. He looked like a man smiling through an earthquake. The ceremony unfolded in polished perfection, vows delivered with charm, rings exchanged with trembling hands, and a kiss that turned cheers from the crowd. After the recessional, guests moved into the ballroom for cocktails and toasts. As the newlyweds made their grand entrance to applause and champagne flutes, Gavin stepped up to the microphone. To my wife, he began, holding Elise's hand, my partner in life and in business. Mira checked her watch. 5 minutes to noon. Elise will be joining the board at Foresight Metrics this quarter, Gavin continued proudly. Her vision and instinct for growth will be instrumental in our expansion. There was polite applause, a few nods of admiration. Elise leaned into him, eyes glittering. Mira raised her glass, barely sipping. 1 minute to go. As Gavin stepped away from the mic, Elise seized the spotlight, gliding forward with the confidence of a woman who believed she had just won the game of life. Thank you all for being here on the happiest day of my life, she beamed. This isn't just the beginning of a marriage, it's the start of a legacy. With Gavin's brilliance and my strategic mind, there's nothing we can't build. 12 p.m. sharp. Mira's phone buzzed again. Press release live. Headlines updated. CNBC, Bloomberg, Fast Company. She didn't have to say a word. Because across the room, Gavin's phone lit up. He glanced down casually, then frowned. A moment later, it buzzed again. Then again. Mira watched him stiffen. His eyes flicked from the screen to Mira across the room. She gave him a small nod, just enough to confirm what he was reading. Gavin excused himself from the crowd, weaving through guests toward the terrace. Elise noticed immediately. Gav? She called out, following after him in her $1,000 heels. The room buzzed as murmurs began to rise. Mira remained seated, calm, composed, legs crossed, her clutch resting lightly on her lap. She found them on the terrace, Elise clutching Gavin's arm, panic starting to crack her flawless mask. What's going on? Elise demanded. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? Gavin turned to her slowly. Foresight was just acquired. What? Elise blinked. That's not possible. The deal wasn't even. It finalized this morning. Press release just went out. Majority acquisition by a firm called LSP Holdings. Elise's face scrunched. Who? Before Gavin could answer, Mira stepped out onto the terrace. Lowell Strategic Partners, she said. LSP Holdings is our parent entity. Elise spun. You? Mira nodded. We've been vetting Foresight metrics for months. The deal closed at market open. Gavin looked down. Your team. They were the ones asking all the due diligence questions under the alias. I prefer discretion, Mira said softly. You understand. Elise's voice dropped to a hiss. You set us up. No, Mira corrected. I did my job. I found a company in distress and negotiated a fair acquisition. Gavin signed the documents. Your name was never on them. But you knew, Elise whispered. You knew this would happen today. Mira met her gaze, steady and unshaken. Of course I did. Back inside, the ballroom began to buzz with phones lighting up like fireflies. Guests whispered, news apps open on screens, headlines flashing. LSP Holdings acquires Foresight Metrics in surprise deal. Mystery CEO behind major consulting firm revealed. Gavin Frey steps down amid acquisition shake-up. Mira turned back to Gavin. Your resignation letter should be in your inbox. The board approved it this morning. He looked like he might be sick. Elise stood frozen. You can't do this, she breathed. This is my wedding day. You're ruining it. Mira raised an eyebrow. No, Elise. I'm correcting it. But what about my position? You can't just erase that. We've restructured leadership, Mira said. Concerns about nepotism. Your board appointment has been withdrawn. Gavin slumped against the terrace railing, defeated. You humiliated me, Elise said, her voice shaking. No, Mira said, calm as a whisper. You humiliated yourself, every time you called my work a hobby, every time you offered to help me find a real job, every time you reminded me I was the failure in the family. And this is payback? This, Mira replied, stepping closer, is a reality check. Elise opened her mouth to say something else, but no words came. Her eyes swelled, mascara smudging just slightly at the corners. Mira turned toward the door. Enjoy the rest of the evening. I selected the champagne myself. Should pair well with humility. Back at her table, Mira finished her drink, tucked her clutch under one arm, and stood. Heads turned as she walked past, the ghost in the family, the shadow in the corner, now revealed as the architect behind the entire collapse. She didn't look back. Not when Elise cried. Not when her parents scrambled to piece together what had just happened. Not when the photographer lowered his camera, unsure of what to capture anymore. Outside, her car pulled up silently. The driver held the door open. Where to, Ms. Lowell? She paused, looking up at the Manhattan skyline, her city now. Back to the office, she said. We've got a company to rebuild. By Monday morning, the world had caught up. LSP Holdings acquires Foresight Metrics in surprise takeover. Mystery CEO revealed as Mira Lowell, founder of Quiet Powerhouse. Strategic assassin or visionary? The woman who restructured her sister's future at the altar. The headlines were relentless. Tech blogs, financial sites, even gossip columns took turns dissecting the wedding spectacle that had morphed into a hostile takeover. The press loved the drama, boardroom versus ballroom. Sister versus sister. But Mira ignored most of it. She didn't need the noise. She needed results. From her glass-walled office in Chicago's West Loop, Mira sipped her black coffee and reviewed the first performance reports under LSP's ownership of Foresight Metrics. As expected, employee morale was low, but operations were improving. Her restructuring plan was already showing signs of traction, new contracts were incoming, client retention had stabilized, and product development had restarted under competent leadership. Across the street, the Foresight office loomed. She could see it from her desk, same building, new direction. Her direction. Her assistant, Rachel, knocked lightly and entered with a clipboard. Morning. Media kits finalized. Press requests are piling up. You want CNBC or Bloomberg first? Mira didn't look up. Neither. Rachel arched a brow. Still playing silent queen? Mira smirked. Let them talk. We'll keep building. Rachel hesitated, then added, your parents are in the lobby again. Third day in a row. Mira exhaled slowly. What do they want this time? They didn't say. Just that it's urgent. And Elise is with them. She didn't react right away. Then she said simply, send down the investor packet. The one with my face on the cover. And the updated org chart. Rachel paused. You want me to include the letter? No, Mira said, gaze locked on the skyline. Let them ask for it. Elise, their parents, and silence. That had been the family dynamic for decades. At least, for Mira. She had always been the background figure, reliable, reserved, the one who didn't make a fuss. Elise sparkled. Elise received. Mira endured. Even when Mira graduated early, top of her class. Even when she turned down cushy offers to build something from scratch. Even when she made her first million by 30, and her second by 32. They never asked. Now they wanted answers. Later that day, Rachel returned with a look Mira knew well. They're not leaving. Mira sighed. Bring them up. 10 minutes. Not a second more. The conference room was large, minimal, intimidating. A matte black table. Chrome fixtures. No family photos. No warmth. Her mother sat first, cautiously, like the chair might bite her. Her father stood stiffly, gripping his hat. Elise slouched in the corner, her once glamorous glow dimmed under fluorescent lighting. Mira, her father said, starting strong. We didn't come to fight. Good, she replied. Because I'm not here to forgive. A beat of silence. Her mother looked like she might cry. Elise stayed quiet. Her father cleared his throat. We didn't know about all this. You never told us. You never asked, Mira said evenly. You could have shared more, her mother offered gently. We would have supported you. Mira leaned forward. When I started my firm, you called it a phase. When I said I wasn't taking the job at Monroe and Steele, you said I'd regret it. And every holiday since, you've asked me if I've landed on my feet. I didn't tell you because I was too busy building. Because I got tired of explaining ambition in a language no one in this family bothered to learn. Her father's voice grew sharper. That still doesn't excuse what you did at the wedding. That was cruel. Mira's voice was ice. Cruel? You want to talk cruelty? She turned to Elise. You humiliated me for years. Publicly. You called my life a joke. You told strangers I was still figuring things out. You mocked my job, my clothes, even my silence. That wedding wasn't sabotage. It was strategy. Elise finally spoke, voice quiet. So that's what this was? A vendetta? No, Mira said. It was a line. One you crossed one too many times. You chose to be cruel. I chose to be strategic. Her mother wiped her eyes. You've changed. No, Mira said. I just stopped dimming the light to make you all more comfortable in your assumptions. The silence that followed was heavy, full of the weight of everything unspoken for years. Her father looked down at the table. So what happens now? Mira stood. You go home, she said. You live your lives. You figure out how to live in a world where I'm not the one needing help, but the one holding the pen. And us? Elise asked. Do we just disappear? Mira met her eyes. You made me disappear for years, she said quietly. I got used to it. After they left, Mira returned to her desk. The view hadn't changed. But something in her chest had. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't revenge. It was freedom. That night, she walked home instead of taking her car. Chicago glowed around her, honest, hard-edged, resilient. Her kind of city. She passed a coffee shop she used to work from in the early days, when no one knew her name and her firm was just a laptop, a vision, and a rented desk. Now she ran 3 offices across 2 continents. Now venture capitalists waited weeks for a meeting. Now CEOs scanned press briefings just to see if she was involved in a deal. But none of it changed who she was. Quiet. Calculated. Purposeful. Mira Lowell didn't need revenge. She needed clarity. And finally, she had it. Weeks passed. The noise faded. The press found its next scandal. Elise retreated from public view. Their parents stopped coming to the office. And Mira? Mira kept building. It was as though, after a decade of making herself small for their comfort, she'd finally stepped fully into the space she was always meant to occupy. Her empire was no longer a secret. But her motives still were. She hadn't done it to be seen. She did it to be free. It was a crisp Tuesday when the first wave of internal restructuring was complete. Foresight Metrics had a new leadership team, a tighter product roadmap, and a refreshed brand identity, streamlined, cleaner, more focused. Mira stood in the glass-walled strategy room, her leadership team gathered around a glowing touchscreen table. They were young, sharp, and hungry, not for ego, but for excellence. Exactly the kind of people Mira liked to work with. The hardest part of a takeover, she said, clicking to the next slide, isn't systems. It's psychology. People have to believe in the future you're offering. That's our real job here. Nods around the table. No one interrupted. Mira had built a team that didn't need to be told twice. When the meeting ended, her CTO lingered. "You've been quiet," he said, hesitantly. "About what happened with the wedding?" Mira raised a brow. "You expected a press tour?" He chuckled nervously. "Honestly? The industry expected fireworks. I've always been more interested in architecture than explosions," she replied. "Fireworks burn out. Buildings last." He nodded, impressed. "Well, the board says you saved the company." "I didn't save anything," she said. "I just gave it a second chance. The people inside will either build something better, or they won't. Either way, I've done my part." That evening, she found herself walking past the Ledge, a rooftop bar in River North she used to work from on slow Thursday nights. Back then, she'd buy one drink, nursing it for hours, just to access the Wi-Fi and plug in her dying laptop. Tonight, she bought a round of drinks for the whole corner of the patio. She sat at her usual table, the skyline wide and full before her. She wasn't celebrating. She was remembering. Every long night. Every ghosted proposal. Every condescending client who asked if she had a real office. Every networking event where people asked if she was the assistant. She remembered all of it. Because now, it fueled her. Elise finally reached out again. This time, it wasn't a call. It wasn't a dramatic office visit. It was a letter. Handwritten. Neat, careful handwriting Mira hadn't seen since they were kids. "You were right. About all of it. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I wanted to say. I see it now. Everything you built. Everything you endured. You didn't need me to believe in you. But I'm sorry I never did. No excuses. No pity." Mira folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and didn't reply. Not out of cruelty. Out of clarity. Some apologies are meant to be kept in silence. Later that week, Mira sat in a conference room with the CFO of one of the largest venture firms in North America. He wore a six-figure suit and a billion-dollar smile. She wore the same tailored navy dress she always did, quiet, precise, unbranded. He leaned forward. "We're looking for someone to lead our next innovation initiative. Clean capital. Female founders. Low noise, high return. Your reputation speaks for itself." Mira considered the offer. Not because she needed it, but because it reminded her how far she'd come. "I'm not interested in being your front woman," she said calmly. "But I will build you something worth backing, on my terms." He blinked. "Of course. What kind of timeline are you thinking?" She smiled slightly. "Let's start yesterday." A month later, Mira launched a new fund under LSP, Foundry. A quiet accelerator for women and underestimated founders who were done waiting for permission. No PR blitz. No awards dinners. Just capital, coaching, and results. Her first cohort included a single mother building a logistics app out of a public library. A first-gen college student designing affordable medical devices. A 50-year-old black woman turning her late husband's auto shop into a tech-enabled car repair subscription service. Mira didn't just mentor them. She armed them. And yet, the one thing that kept surprising her wasn't the growth, or the returns, or the press quietly shifting from mystery CEO to architect of modern strategy. It was the letters. They came in slowly at first, then all at once. Emails. DMs. Handwritten envelopes. From women who'd been called too much or not enough. From sons who watched their sisters shrink under the weight of a golden sibling. From interns who never got credit. From founders who were laughed out of pitch rooms. All of them saying the same thing. You made me believe again. One night, while reviewing metrics for the fund's first quarter, Myra's assistant Rachel entered with a padded envelope. No sender, she said. Looks personal. Inside was a photo. It was from years ago. A family Christmas. Elise at the center, smiling brightly. Their parents raising glasses. Mira in the background, half cut from the frame, eyes cast down. On the back was a sticky note, written in Elise's hand. I never saw it before. I'm sorry for the way I looked past you. I won't anymore. Mira held the photo for a long moment. Then she placed it in the shredder. That Friday, Mira hosted the first Foundry dinner on a rooftop overlooking the city. No gowns. No chandeliers. No fireworks. Just founders, laughter, shared stories, and one long communal table under hanging lights. As she stood to toast, a young woman near the end of the table asked, "Did you ever think you'd end up here?" Mira thought for a moment. Yes, she said. But not because they believed in me. Because I did. Mira Lowell had always been underestimated. First by teachers who thought she was too quiet to lead. Then by recruiters who told her she lacked the energy for client-facing roles. Later, by her own family, the ones who applauded Elise's every step while barely noticing Mira had already outpaced them all. But now, standing behind the smoked glass podium of Foundry's first demo day, she was no longer quiet. She didn't need to be. Behind her were banners bearing her company's insignia. Before her sat investors, journalists, founders, and leaders who had once passed her over. And beside her, row after row of entrepreneurs, most of them women, most of them first-time founders, waiting for their moment to shine. She gripped the edge of the podium and began. When I started my firm, she said, it was just me, a laptop, and a folding chair at a shared co-working space no one even bothered to clean on weekends. People assumed I was someone's assistant. Sometimes I didn't correct them. A small ripple of laughter. They underestimated me. And I let them. She let the silence hang for a moment. Not because I was afraid. But because I was building. And when you are building something meaningful, you don't always need noise. You need time. You need clarity. You need the strength to keep working in the shadows, even while everyone else steals the spotlight. She scanned the room, so many eyes watching her now. Listening. Not because she demanded it, but because she'd earned it. For those of you who are still waiting to be seen, she said, her voice steady, remember this, the people laughing at you now might be answering to you later. Applause erupted. But Mira simply stepped back and gave the floor to the founders presenting that night. This moment wasn't hers alone. It belonged to all of them. Later, at the private reception, Mira found herself on the terrace, a glass of wine in hand, overlooking the Chicago skyline. I heard Elise is back in town, Rachel, her assistant, said as she approached. She's working part-time at a branding firm in River North. Mira didn't react. Good for her. She asked if you'd meet for lunch. She did. Rachel nodded. She said. No cameras. No drama. Just conversation. Mira stared out at the skyline for a long beat. Tell her I'm booked. Rachel hesitated. Permanently? No, Mira said softly. Just. For now. She didn't hold hatred anymore. There wasn't room for it. But she also didn't owe anyone her closure. 3 months later, Forbes ran a cover story. The Strategist in the Shadows, How Mira Lowell Quietly Took Over the Game. The article chronicled her rise, from the overlooked sibling to the CEO behind multiple seven-figure turnarounds. It didn't focus on the wedding story. It didn't need to. Mira had already reshaped the narrative. The article ended with a quote. I don't build to be loud. I build to last. Back at home, in her minimalist loft overlooking Lake Michigan, Mira lit a single candle. The room was quiet. No guests. No assistants. No headlines. Just the rhythm of the city outside and the comfort of stillness inside. She moved through her routine, tea, journal, inbox check, and paused at her bookshelf. On it were 3 framed photos. The first day she signed the lease for her first office. Her team at the launch of Foundry. A group photo from demo day, every founder beaming under the rooftop lights. Next to them, an unmarked envelope. Inside, Elise's handwritten letter. The only piece of the past Mira hadn't let go. Not because she needed it, but because it reminded her of who she used to be, and how far she'd come. The next morning, she visited a neighborhood high school to speak to a group of teenage girls enrolled in a new entrepreneurship program. Mira didn't bring a press kit. She didn't wear designer heels. Just a cardigan, jeans, and a voice that carried. "Raise your hand," she said, "if someone's ever told you that you're not leadership material." Half the room raised their hands. "Now raise your hand if they were wrong." All of them did. She smiled. "That's your power. Remember that. Let the world sleep on you. Let them mislabel you. Let them laugh. And while they do, build. Quietly. Consistently. Unapologetically." She left that morning with a line of students asking for mentorship, internships, advice. But one girl waited until everyone had left. "I don't have anyone," she whispered. "No parents. No safety net. I want to build something too. But it feels impossible." Mira knelt so they were eye level. "Let me tell you something no one told me," she said. "You don't need permission to be extraordinary. You just need a place to start. You're already there." The girl's eyes welled. Mira placed a card in her hand. "Come see me next week. We'll talk about what's next." Back at the office, Rachel greeted her with a grin. "You've got mail." Mira raised a brow. "Physical mail?" Rachel nodded and handed her a thick envelope. Inside, a polished business plan, complete with mock-ups and a handwritten note at the end. "Thank you for seeing me. I'm ready now. I want to build." No signature. Just a return address from a group home on the south side. Mira held the note for a moment, then walked to her desk and added it to the center of her vision board. There was a time when she built to prove herself. Now she built so others wouldn't have to. That evening, she updated her personal journal, something she rarely shared. But this entry was for her. "When they doubted me, I worked. When they mocked me, I studied. When they forgot me, I planned. And when the time was right, I didn't shout. I signed the check. Now, I build legacies. Not for revenge. But for remembrance. So that every girl who gets told she's too quiet, too late, or too little, learns that power isn't given. It's claimed." Final line. And sometimes, the most powerful people in the room are the ones they never saw coming.